Hey everyone, rate this revenge 1 to 10. How justified or satisfying is it? Drop a number and a short reason. Let's get into it. They say betrayal cuts deepest when it's from blood. I wouldn't know. I was never really theirs. My name's Rachel. I'm 30 years old, live just outside Amarillo, Texas. And I knew the second he shoved her, it was time. We were all sitting on the patio that evening. Me, my adoptive father, and my two golden boy brothers. The grill was on, plates set out like this was some kind of happy family reunion. It wasn't. I hadn't seen them in over 6 years. I was only here because the hospital called. Said he asked for me. Maple had wandered a little too close, her hooves soft against the concrete, nose sniffing at the plate of corn. "Get that dumb animal away from the table," Dad muttered. I didn't say anything. I never did when it came to him. Just watched as he shoved back his chair with a loud scrape, turned, and slammed his hand into Maple's side. She stumbled back but didn't react, just looked at me, waiting. I gave her the signal, barely a twitch of my fingers near my leg. She turned without a sound and walked straight back toward the barn. Quick note, before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from? A gust of dry wind rolled through as Dad sat back down like nothing had happened. He stabbed a piece of brisket and stuffed it in his mouth, chewing loud like always. Ryan and Eric, my brothers, were trying too hard to act normal. They knew I hadn't come for the food, and neither had Maple. 2 minutes later, I heard the first SUV pull up fast. Tires grinding, boots hitting gravel. Dad froze mid-bite, fork still halfway to his mouth. Eric's face drained. Ryan swore under his breath and pushed back from the table. I didn't move, just leaned back in my chair and looked toward the driveway like I hadn't been waiting for this moment for months. Law enforcement, hands where we can see them. Voices cut across the yard, uniforms fanned out, guns holstered but visible. No sirens. This wasn't a show. It was a sweep. Dad turned to me, eyes wide. "What the hell did you do?" I stood up slow, adjusted my jacket. "Just dinner," I said. "You invited me, remember?" They didn't know it yet, but everything was already in motion. Files, footage, documents. All they had to do now was eat. The way they stared at me as the cops swarmed in, like I'd just pulled a pin on a grenade, didn't surprise me. That look, that shock, it only happens when someone's too arrogant to believe you're capable of anything at all. They'd spent their whole lives underestimating me. I didn't come from money, not even close. My first memories of a crowded foster home in Lubbock, 6 kids to a room, and a tired woman who ran it like a daycare. I was 5 when CPS shuffled me to the Wilkinsons. Big property, gated driveway, white porch swing that creaked even when the wind was dead still. I remember thinking it looked like a house from a cereal commercial. Safe. It wasn't unsafe, but it damn sure wasn't warm. They had 2 boys already, Ryan and Eric, both a couple years older. Golden hair, spotless sneakers, names stitched on their baseball gloves. I was the tag-along, the project their mother pushed for after one of her book club friends adopted a baby from Guatemala. Mrs. Wilkinson was the type of woman who always looked like she was going to a brunch she didn't want to be at. Hair perfect, voice sweet, hands cold. She'd say things like, "We're giving her a real chance," like I wasn't standing right there. The rules came quick. No shoes on the rug. Don't eat after dinner. Always knock before entering any room that wasn't mine. The boys got to go hunting with Dad, to car shows, football games. I got chores. Feed the dogs, wipe the counters. Don't sit on the couch in your play clothes. At school, people thought I was lucky. Big house, clean clothes, a real family. They didn't see how alone I was inside it. Mrs. Wilkinson died when I was 13. Cancer, fast and quiet. After that, the house went mute. Dad threw himself into work. The boys got louder. I got invisible. He never hit me, never called me names. He just acted like I wasn't worth the oxygen. By 18, I was gone. Took the first EMT gig I could land 3 counties away. Crappy pay, sleepless nights, but at least I was out. Didn't take long to realize emergency work burns you out fast. It wasn't the blood, it was the silence. The quiet in the back of the rig after someone flatlined, or the look in their eyes when they knew it was over but still hoped you'd lie. I started doing side work with a PI who rode along sometimes. Insurance cases, background checks, tracking deadbeat dads. He taught me how to follow without being noticed, how to read people, how to ask the question after the question. That's where I found her. We were working a foreclosure out in Rayton. Some rich rancher defaulted and left behind more than debt. Maple was there, tied up, ribs showing through her skin, coat matted with filth. Most horses spook easy in bad conditions. She didn't. She just stared, didn't blink when I walked up, didn't flinch when I touched her side. It was like she'd already survived worse. I fed her a granola bar from my pack and stayed until animal control showed. Then I called the shelter 2 counties over, the one that actually cared. I told them if nobody claimed her, I would. 2 weeks later, she was mine. At first, I thought I was saving her. Truth is, she was the first thing that ever saw me. Not just looked at me, but really saw me. She didn't care where I came from, what my last name was, or how grateful I was supposed to be for a house that felt like a museum with no doors. Maple was just calm, sharp, unshakable. We made sense together. We made sense together. That was the last clean truth I had before the hospital called. It had been 6 years, not a text, not a holiday card, nothing. And suddenly I'm getting a voicemail from some nurse at St. James saying my father had a heart flutter. Not serious, just enough to make him collapse in the grocery store parking lot. I figured it was a mistake. Maybe he said my name out of reflex. Maybe they mixed me up with someone else. But then she added, "Your brothers said they're unavailable. He asked for you." That made me stop. Not feel, just stop. I loaded Maple in the trailer the next morning, took the long road through Dalhart to avoid traffic, rolled up the Wilkinson driveway after dark. That porch swing still creaked in the windless air. He was sitting in the same damn recliner, same dent in the cushion, same can of warm beer sweating on the table beside him. A blood pressure cuff hung off his wrist like a forgotten accessory. He looked over once when I walked in and gave a grunt. "You brought the horse," he muttered. "She stays with me." "Suit yourself." I found the guest sheets in the laundry room. Not a single one smelled washed. The next 3 days were strange, not hostile, not warm, just stale. I drove him to the pharmacy, made him oatmeal, walked Maple around the property when the sun dropped low. He'd sit out front and stare at nothing. Talked mostly about Ryan and Eric, their entrepreneurial ventures, their podcast, their sales company, the custom website they were launching. Not once did he ask what I'd done with my life. Not one question about the EMT work or the cases I'd cracked, or the fact that I made a living off the things they all used to say I'd never be smart enough to do. He just droned on. "You know Eric could sell snow to a damn Eskimo. Ryan's got a real head for crypto. Should teach you a thing or two. They've got that winner instinct. It's rare." I started keeping notes, not because I cared, but because his bragging didn't line up with reality. None of it felt grounded. Too many vague words. Too much talk of shifting assets and clients who don't like attention. The garage still had the same trophies, still smelled like gas and rubber, still had that photo of Ryan holding a shotgun and a buck, like he'd actually done something noble. But under the dust, something felt off, like the whole house was pretending. Maple stayed close, too close. She didn't like the side shed or the back hallway near the office. She'd freeze, ears twitching, nostrils flaring. That horse had better instincts than most men I've met. Then, 4 nights in, we're sitting in silence, me flipping through the mail, him sipping his 3rd can. "You should stay for dinner tomorrow," he said suddenly. I looked up. "Why?" "Boys are coming over. Figured we'd all catch up." He said it too casually, like he hadn't ignored me for a decade. I watched him shuffle off to bed after, but the air felt thick, too quiet. Maple stood at the window when I walked out to check on her, eyes locked toward the house. I didn't pet her, didn't speak, just leaned against the railing and waited for that uneasy feeling to settle. It didn't. I didn't sleep much that night. Neither did Maple. The next afternoon, I started dinner early. He liked pot roast, said it was the only thing I ever cooked right, like that was a compliment. I was slicing carrots at the counter when I heard the back door open. Maple had wandered in again, quiet as ever, just standing near the fridge. "Christ," Dad muttered behind me. "Damn animals always underfoot. Just like women, always hanging around where they're not needed." I didn't answer. I didn't even blink. I heard the smack before I turned, the thud of his boot hitting her ribs. Maple didn't move. She just looked at me, calm, steady. I gave her the nod. Barely there. She turned slow, walked straight out the back door, past the fence line and toward the old tool shed by the dry creek bed. That was the signal. We'd been working on it for weeks, starting the moment I saw the tech setup in the garage. A stack of routers still in plastic wrap, a case of burner phones, invoices for things he had no business owning, signal jammers, thermal cameras, encrypted drives. He couldn't even send a group text without Ryan doing it for him. Maple picked up on things I didn't see at first. She'd stop near the pantry door, sniff the air, refuse to walk past the barn's side stall. There was something there, something off, and her instincts didn't miss a thing. I followed her lead, quiet, slow, no sudden moves. In the evenings, when he passed out on the couch or left to check the property lines, I'd slip into the office. I wasn't digging for dirt, I was confirming it. It was all there, bank statements showing odd deposits, utility bills for buildings we didn't have. Then I found a thumb drive tucked behind the bookshelf, labeled with my name, inside, documents, papers signed with my signature, except they weren't mine. Loan applications, property transfers, co-ownership agreements with businesses I'd never heard of. They were using me as a ghost, so I went full pie mode, stripped down an old camera and built a rig into Maple's harness. She carried it like it weighed nothing. Every morning, I'd send her walking through the property, past the garage, around the trailer, out back, by the old pump house that hadn't worked since '98. She got it all. The first real hit was Ryan handing a cash envelope to some guy in a lifted F-150. No plates, no conversation, just a head nod and a pass-off. Then Eric talking on a burner saying, "No, she's clueless, doesn't even know what a lien is." Like hell I didn't. They joked about me, about how I'd owed them for years. Said Dad was smart to bring me back, that I was easier to use when I thought I was helping. I watched every second of it from my laptop, sick to my stomach, but not surprised. It wasn't just shady, it was criminal. I logged timestamps, captured video, took photos of forged documents. I even caught Dad pulling papers from the safe in the study and muttering, "Stupid girl won't even notice." No, I noticed. I just didn't speak. Not yet. I didn't speak. Not yet. The next morning, I made a call. Not to the sheriff, not to a lawyer. To someone who actually knew what financial crimes looked like before they exploded. His name was Eric Molina, State Auditor's Office. We'd crossed paths a few years back when I flagged a false insurance claim for a deadbeat rancher. He told me then, "If you ever smell something big, real big, call me before you blow it up." So I did. I didn't say names. Just said I was sitting on live surveillance from inside a suspected fraud ring, and the suspects might be using forged documents, including state records. His tone changed real quick. "You're saying this is family?" he asked. "Adoptive," I said. "Not that it matters." He told me how to proceed, quietly. No confrontations, no questions, no warnings. Build a full profile. Show patterns, dates, behavior, names, assets. Once I had everything, I'd send it through a secure portal that would go straight to his internal review team. Maple earned her oats after that. She walked the property twice a day, camera rolling. I trained her to pause in places where audio was best, near the tool shed, the truck bed, the east corner of the garage. She stood so still you'd think she was part of the fence. The footage came in slow at first, nothing too solid, but by the end of the first week, I had Eric handing Ryan a new burner phone in the dark. "No calls," Eric said on camera, "only texts. Delete after." Then a clip of Ryan slipping a cash envelope into the back of the old freezer laughing. "Tell Dad I moved the retirement fund." I could feel the walls tightening around them. They didn't know I was tracking every step. Watching their mouths move, their hands trade envelopes, their carelessness grow by the hour. The worst part wasn't them, though. It was him. My father, if you want to call him that, was no bystander. He'd play dumb, act like he needed help dialing voicemail. Then I'd catch him pacing the hallway with the door cracked, whispering about documents needing her name. One night, I walked in with laundry, and he flinched, then smiled like he'd been talking to himself. But Maple had already logged it. When they thought I was sleeping, they planned things, moved money, talked about shifting ownership and selling before the end of quarter. That language wasn't just casual, that was corporate, dirty corporate. Then I found it, a new folder, labeled RW Backups. Inside was a scanned loan agreement for a commercial property. My name typed, my signature forged, my social security number. They used me to secure funding, backed it with liens against land I'd never owned. They didn't just bring me back to help, they brought me back because they'd already used me, and they needed to keep me close. I wasn't home. I was bait. I wasn't bait anymore. I was the trap. The next morning, I sat down at the kitchen table with a legal pad and a black coffee, started building my case like I was prepping for a court date I'd never attend. Every clip from Maple's harness got logged, time-stamped, labeled, backed up twice. I printed stills of cash handoffs, burner phone exchanges, shots of my forged signature, matched them to dates from the bank statements I'd copied when they thought I was just getting the mail. There was a pattern, and it was ugly. Every single one of them had their hands in it, and every single one of them thought I was just some lost stray who'd come home too dumb to notice. I built a digital folder and titled it Final Proof, sent it to Melina through his secure portal. Took almost an hour to upload. 10 minutes later, his reply came through, packet received, everything checks, awaiting trigger. That same day, Ryan and Eric texted, dinner tonight? Family meeting. Don't be late. That was their mistake, thinking this was still their house. I showed up to the table calm. Maple stood just outside the patio door, quiet, still, watching. Eric was already halfway through a beer. Ryan had on one of those tacky-fitted polos he thought made him look like an entrepreneur instead of a felon. Dad was silent, chewing slowly like he didn't want to be here but also didn't want to miss it. Halfway through the meal, Ryan cleared his throat. So, Rach, you've been helpful these past few weeks. Real helpful. I just raised an eyebrow. Eric chimed in. And with the way the business is scaling, we figured it's time to give you a more official role, paperwork and all. Ownership adjustments, Ryan added. Nothing huge, just a few forms. We'll walk you through it after dessert. Dad finally spoke. This family's all about trust. You said you wanted to be useful again? I stabbed my fork into the roast, nodded like I'd heard something worth agreeing with. Let them have it. Let them feel the win. After dinner, they went out back to smoke and talk business. I stayed behind, cleared the plates, cleaned the table, like I always did. Then I headed to the study. The folder was already on the desk. 3 documents inside, ready for my signature. I pulled them out, slipped them into a decoy folder, replaced them with fakes I'd printed earlier. Same headers, same formatting, but completely harmless. No binding terms, no access, no trapdoor clauses. Then I prepped the room, left the door unlocked, adjusted the blinds, hid a second recording device in the lamp. The only thing that stayed exactly as it was? The rug by the bookshelf, Maple's spot. She'd been trained to stop there and wait, just outside the study door. One signal, and she'd know what to do. Later that night, I checked the locks, brushed Maple's coat, and set my alarm for 5 a.m. The timing had to be perfect. Maple watched me the whole time, calm as always. Her ears twitched when I clicked off the lamp. She knew. This wasn't the house I'd grown up in anymore. It was a crime scene with throw pillows, and I was the one holding the detonator. The study was prepped, Maple was steady. I didn't sleep. By morning, the house had that usual low buzz. Coffee pot gurgling, the hum of the fridge, wind kicking dust down the driveway. Nothing felt urgent. That was the trick. Dad shuffled into the kitchen with a grocery list in his hand. Shaky pen marks, a couple items circled. We're low on eggs, bread too. You mind running to the store? Sure, I said, taking the list. He didn't look up, just sat, opened his paper, and started sipping his coffee. I walked out like I was headed for the truck, waited till I was past the barn, then cut behind the shed and circled the back fence line. Took the long way around, left my phone on record in the truck. Maple stayed inside. Harness strapped tight, mic rolling. I watched from the side of the house, back to the wall just past the window. Movement inside, Maple didn't make a sound. Ryan's silhouette slipped through the front door. Fast, careful, gloves on. He didn't even bother looking around, just went straight to the study, like he'd done it before. I crouched low beneath the side window. Couldn't hear everything, but I didn't have to. Inside, Maple was getting it all. I saw the flicker of the desk lamp turn on, then the click of the safe. He pulled the decoy folder like it was gold. Stupid girl didn't even seal it, I heard him mutter. Then the faint whir of a USB drive being plugged in. Another minute passed. He tapped a few keys, probably deleting what he thought were the real files. Clean slate, he mumbled. No more stupid questions. He left the folder like nothing had changed, straightened it, smiled to himself, walked back out. I waited until he was gone, then slipped back in through the side door, wiped my shoes, and set the eggs I'd bought yesterday on the counter like I'd just come home. Maple walked toward me, calm and collected. Good girl. That night, I made chili, set the table, cracked open beers like it was any other Tuesday. Ryan walked in cocky, slapped Dad on the back, winked at Eric, the usual show. You're quiet. he said to me halfway through dinner. Long day, I said. He smirked. Hope you didn't leave the study unlocked again. You've got a bad habit. Eric chuckled. Dad didn't even look up. Maple was by the hallway, still, watching. I leaned back in my chair, dried my hands on a napkin, and walked past her to get the pie from the fridge. As I passed, I leaned in close, real low, and whispered, "Ready." Maple shifted, just one small step, just enough. We were in position. They had no idea. Ryan pushed his empty plate back and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. He glanced over at me, eyes sharp, like he was about to offer me a favor I didn't deserve. You mind if we take a look at that paperwork tonight? He asked. Just want to make sure everything's squared away. I nodded. Sure, study's unlocked. He stood first. Eric followed, casual, like this was just another routine cleanup. Dad stayed seated, beer in hand, staring at the wall. I led them down the hallway. Maple's hooves echoed once behind us before falling silent. She didn't follow, not yet. In the study, the desk lamp was already on. The folder sat dead center, exactly where Ryan left it. I stepped aside so they could reach it. Ryan opened it. His brow twitched. He flipped through once, then again, slower. Eric leaned in. Where's the rest of it? I crossed my arms. Gone. What's left is mine. Ryan snorted. What's this crap? He held up the single sheet inside. 4 lines written in block letters, plain and cold. Forgery, wire fraud, identity theft, felony conspiracy. Eric laughed. You trying to scare us? I stepped forward. It's not for you. It's for the record. Ryan's smile dropped. What record? I reached across the desk, opened the laptop, and turned the screen toward them. It was already queued, a window full of video thumbnails, each labeled by date and location. I hit play. The clip showed Ryan sliding a burner phone across the truck console, Eric pulling cash from the freezer, my forged signature on a loan doc, Dad muttering about keeping her close. Eric stepped back. You're bluffing. I didn't answer, just hit stop. It's already submitted, I said. State Financial Crimes Division has it. They've had it for a week. Ryan lunged. I didn't flinch. Maple moved first. She stepped into the room, head low, ears pinned back. Before Ryan could touch me, she was between us, shoulder tight to his chest, pressing him against the bookshelf like she'd been doing it her whole life. He froze. Back up, I said, voice flat. Eric held his hands up. This is insane. Tell that to your offshore accounts, I said. Ryan was breathing hard, but he didn't move. Maple didn't either. I reached into my pocket, gave a low, long whistle, the same one I'd used to train her to respond to fire drills. She stepped back one pace and held. Then we heard it. Boots. Fast. Heavy. From the porch. From the back door. From every damn corner. Search warrant. Stay seated. Hands where we can see them. SWAT moved in like a flood. Black uniforms, radios hissing, rifles low but ready. Eric's face went white. Ryan turned red. Maple didn't blink. One officer pulled me back gently. You're good. Just step out. Dad hadn't moved from the table. He was still holding his beer, jaw slack, staring down the hallway like he was waiting for someone to wake him up. He looked at me like he didn't even recognize who I was. I met his stare and didn't say a word. He was finally seeing me, but it was already too late. The cuffs clicked louder than I expected. Ryan shouted first. Of course he did. You're making a mistake. This is all fake. She set us up. The officers didn't flinch. Eric tried to reason, started talking fast about business licenses and miscommunications. He was still mid-sentence when they walked him out in zip ties. Maple stood in the doorway, still, watching. Her shadow stretched across the hallway like a warning sign. I turned toward the kitchen. Dad hadn't moved. Not a word. Not a twitch. He just stared at the salt shaker like it held all the answers. He didn't ask why, didn't tell them to stop. He knew. He'd known for a while. Boots moved in and out. Radios popped. I gave the lead agent the passwords for the safe and the garage laptop. Pointed them to the drawer in the office desk with the backup keys. No hesitation, no second thoughts. 15 minutes later, a dark blue sedan pulled up behind the cruisers. Eric Molina stepped out, clipboard under one arm, sleeves rolled. He walked straight past the chaos and found me in the hallway. Rachel, he said, offering a tired but honest smile. You did it. I didn't smile back. Everything you submitted matched up. We've already linked 2 offshore accounts to your brothers. And that loan under your name? He shook his head. Sloppy, but effective. Got us what we needed to escalate fast. He glanced toward the back door, where Ryan was still shouting about lawsuits and entrapment. I've been doing this 15 years, Melina said, voice lower now. I've never seen an internal setup this clean. You sure you've never done this before? I looked toward Maple, who was now standing calmly by the stairs, eyes half-lidded like she was already over it. She's the only partner I trust. He followed my gaze, gave a soft chuckle. Fair enough. He offered a business card. We've got post-case resources, counseling, relocation help, name changes, if needed. I didn't take it. Appreciate it, I said, but I'm good. He studied me for a second, then tucked the card back into his pocket. If that changes, call me. Outside, they were loading Eric into the back of the cruiser. Ryan had finally shut up. Dad walked out last. No cuffs, no fuss. Just a worn-out man with nothing left to argue about. He didn't look at me, and I didn't look back. I grabbed Maple's lead rope from the fence post, clicked it onto her harness, and walked her to the trailer. She stepped in without a sound. I didn't pack a single bag, didn't grab a keepsake. That house could rot with everything still inside. An hour later, I checked into a roadside inn off the highway near Tucumcari. Maple had her grain. I had a bottle of water and a deadbolt. That night, I slept harder than I had in years. Morning sun lit up the edge of the motel curtain when I woke. Maple's snorts from the trailer out back meant she was ready to move. So we did. That was about 9 months ago. Since then, the Wilkinson house sold at auction. Cheap. Foreclosure signs never care how big your porch is. New family moved in, painted it blue. Someone ripped out the deer mount from the living room wall. Good. Eric cut a plea deal. Got probation, fines, mandatory business ethics classes. Whatever the hell that means. Ryan ducked jail too, opted for rehab and some court-ordered therapy. He'll probably write a book one day about being targeted. Dad's in subsidized housing now, wheelchair-bound after a minor stroke. No charges stuck to him directly, but his name's mud in that town. He sent nothing, said nothing. Fine by me. One day I got a message from their oldest, Danielle. Technically my adoptive sister, but she was long gone by the time I showed up at that house. All it said was, "Saw what happened. Hope you're okay." I didn't answer. Didn't delete it either. Just left it there. Ghosts don't need closure. I moved again. New city, new last name. I go by Rachel Green now. I work civil enforcement, quiet, back office stuff. Digging through real estate scams, payroll fraud, falsified disability claims. Stuff no one cares about until it hits their bank account. I'm good at it. Don't need to wear a badge to cut someone off at the knees. On my desk, there's one thing from that old house. A plastic toy horse, brown with a white streak on its nose. I wasn't allowed to touch it growing up. It sat behind glass, one of Ryan's collectibles. I took it the day I left. Didn't even feel like stealing. Now it sits next to Maple's photo, her ears pricked, her eyes locked on something beyond the frame. She's older now, stiffer in the mornings, grunts more when she lays down. But her mind's sharp. She's still my partner. When her retirement comes, it'll be slow and clean and right beside me. She earned that. I walk alone now, and I like it that way, but I'm not lonely. They never saw me coming, because they never saw me as anything that could threaten them. That's how I won. Maple's trailer door creaked open behind me. She stepped down, slow, steady. Another case, another truth waiting to be pulled loose. We walked in together, quiet, ready.